We are talking Jade, and this is directed and co-written by James Bamford, a former professional stuntman. And this one stars Shayna West, but you have got some recognisable supporting actors here in the forms of Mark Dacascos, which was the reason I watched this movie, because I'm a huge Dacascos fan. You've also got Mickey Rourke and Catherine McNamara. Now, this is best described as a kind of a low-budget mishmash of Boy Kills World meets Kill Bill. And it's a kind of hyper-violent, stylistic, sort of action B-movie, for lack of a better word. So, West plays Jade, a kind of gang member who travelled from the UK to America when her father died with her, and she travelled there with her younger brother who was killed in an accident that was her fault. And now she's kind of ultimately feeling guilty for it, and she swears off guns. But she gets embroiled in a plot when one of her former associates ends up passing off a hard drive to her with bad guys hot in pursuit. Now she ends up having to try and evade these bad guys, and there's various other kind of factions who want this kind of hard drive and are trying to get it and stop Jade, but no matter the cost. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So, let's discuss. So, as I said, the director here, formerly a stuntman, so you know that this movie is going to have lots of action, lots of stunt work. It does not disappoint on that front. So, yeah, you'll get plenty of action sequences, and this movie is all about the action sequences ultimately, and there is some definite directorial flourishes. This is why I make the comparison to like Boy Kills Well, because it had that sort of that over-the-top flashiness of it. Also maybe a little bit like Scott Pilgrim. There is a few kind of video game references here. You might think this is a Mortal Kombat solo movie based on the character Jade, but it isn't. But there is even a Mortal Kombat reference in here. But yeah, it's, if you like high octane action, then this one is wall to wall full of it. And as I say, despite this being a lower budget than the aforementioned Boy Kills World and Kill Bill, it still delivers, I think, on some great stunt work, some well choreographed action sequences, and obviously it's always nice to see, as I say, Mark Dacascos on screen, albeit his role is actually quite small in this movie. But West does an admirable job here of doing all her own stunts, apparently. She's a trained martial artist, so she's a pretty good on-screen physical presence here, and, you know, excels, I think, in sort of doing these action sequences in this kind of like hyper-reality, so to speak. So yeah, it's a fast-paced movie. It doesn't really ever sort of stop once it kind of gets going, so you'll never be too far away from an action sequence. It gets quite bloody. Mickey Rourke plays our bad guy, and he's pretty brutal, killing his own men when they don't kind of do what he wants, things like that. So he comes across as quite kind of a menacing sort of bad guy. And then, as I mentioned, the director here is trying to carve out his own voice. So you'll get these sort of like little camera movements. You'll get sort of title sequences sort of come up. It almost reminds you of a little bit like Edgar Wright to some degree. I mean, there have been plenty of examples where we have this sort of hyper reality where things are kind of extra accentuated and things like that. So it doesn't seem all that original anymore, but nonetheless, there's definitely still a kind of a directorial style coming through here. So that was all fairly good. I mean, I think this movie also has influences from the likes of kind of Tarantino. As I mentioned, the likeness to Kill Bill, but we have this hard drive. We never really know what's on it, so it's kind of like this, you know, Item X, a little bit like, you know, the Pulp Fiction movie, things like that. So it's having all these kind of influences sort of come in, and we get a mixture of fist fights, sword play, gun play, and it's a reasonably kind of bloody film with lots of kind of exploding heads and things like that. Not to the extreme, but there's plenty of the red stuff on display here. So if you just like a kind of a fun action movie, lots going on, lots of kind of well put together kind of action sequences, then you may want to check it out. What doesn't work with this film I think this movie is very much style over substance. I mean, it looks pretty good from obviously what, you know, you can probably get an idea from what I've told you here. But what it lacks is character and depth in story. So we get like an animated sequence at the beginning of the movie, sort of giving us this backstory of Jade, you know, how her and her brother travelled from England to America, how she ended up kind of getting involved with this gang, the brother that was killed, this Catherine McNamara's character, her relationship with her. We won't see any of that. It's just like a quick exposition done, but all we ever get is just that, you know, that exposition, and then from there on, she's just this killing machine. And they make a big point at one point in even showing you her kill count, but it never really explains, you know, how she's got so proficient in murder. I mean, it's not like, it's never like insinuated that she was like an assassin or she was in the military. You've just got to accept she's great at killing people, things like that. Again, some of the backstory I felt could have been a little bit more told to us rather than, or shown us scenes, rather than just an exposition done with an animated sequence, because we never really feel like we connect with the character of Jade. All we see is this somewhat kind of unstoppable sort of killing machine. It doesn't really help that I think the sort of the dialogue here is very cheesy. So this is kind of comes across this sort of silly movie, if you see what I mean. The dialogue is just a little bit trite. I mean, the action sequences, yeah, they're fun, they're exciting, but the dialogue is like, oh, it's a little bit cringe at times, I have to say. And like I said, we don't really get any context about how is she so sort of good at fighting and things like that. So, you know, it's somewhat of a hollow affair. I mean, it kind of looks pretty good, but the story is just kind of like people, wave after wave of goons just getting killed. And these goons are like, you know, it's frustrating because the action sequences are pretty good. Let me get this wrong. But it's, you know, we have sequences, for example, where they are trying to kill the Jade character, these like goons. But instead of just shooting her, they'll try and carry her off to somewhere else, or things like that. I mean, we even get our Mickey Rourke character say, kill her. But do they? No, they're all armed. They'll just sit around and kind of wait for the Jade character to kick their ass with their, you know, fists or feet and what have you. You know, these bad guys seem to be have learned how to shoot at the Stormtrooper School of Shooting because they never seem to hit anything. So it's all a bit like just faceless goons one after another. And I think there may be to the way to kind of stop that monotony for it to a degree. Would have like boss fights to a point if it's going with that video game aesthetic, but it doesn't. It's just sort of like wave after wave of faceless goons, and it's like, yeah, it looks cool, but it's really shallow. So I'll give this movie a 5 out of 10. I think it's, if you just like mindless action, there is plenty of it. It looks cool. I think the characters have a certain you know, cool factor to a degree, but there's nothing really there outside of that. It's just very sort of a surface level movie. 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Please do let me know, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.